This is Bill Carter and Fred Kruger From Vinyl Productions. Tonight, it's Blue Oyster Cult in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And we have the honor of having Buck Dharma beside us. Hey, Buck, how you doing?
Feeling pretty good, Bill.
Excellent. So first thing, we're going to ask this typical question. Who's in the lineup right now? Can you run that by us?
Yes. From the original Legacy Blue Oyster Cult, it's myself, Buck Dharma, and Eric Bloom, the two vocalists from the band, prime vocalists. And, of course, I play the lead guitar. And Eric plays guitar and keys. Then we have Rudy Sarzo from Los Angeles, famous bass player in his own right. Played with a lot of great bands in the 80s. He played with Ozzy, he played with Whitesnake, he played with Quiet Riot.
Good company then, right?
Yeah, Rudy's great. He's a hell of a gentleman and a hell of a bass player.
Well, that's cool, and definitely look forward to seeing it tonight.
Yeah, I'm not finished.
Oh, okay, well.
So we got Richie Castellano on bass and on guitar and keys. Richie started playing bass in the band before we got Rudy. And Jules Rodino on drums. Jules has been with us for about 5 years now.
You done now?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Buck, I was wondering, the record industry, how do you feel about the record industry? I mean, the change from the 70s to, what's this now, 2010?
Mm-hmm. It's obvious to any observer that the legacy record companies completely blew the transition from vinyl to digital to basically no media. The business model of the record business depended on them controlling the distribution and the media of music. So once the internet age basically destroyed all that, they had no way to really sustain what they had traditionally done. Not that labels don't exist anymore; they do, but they certainly didn't do anything to really ensure their own survival. They probably owe it both to Apple and to a lesser extent Amazon for staying in business.
The bands of the 70s, like the million-selling artists, platinum, multi-platinum, that continued well into the mid-'80s, I guess. But then after that, things started to change, where the new artists were being focused on, and then a lot of the classic bands, like Blue Oyster Cult, kind of was getting shifted into a different record label, if you will.
Well, that typically happens even in a world where there wasn't an internet, But I guess what really happened was the record business and to a lesser extent television and film found themselves in the software business, in much in the same way a software program is. Some people will pay for it, some people will steal it, but no one really has control of distribution of music anymore. So we were in a situation where millions of people were downloading our music, but very few of them were paying for it.
Now, the record companies, for example, like CMC, Sanctuary to maybe a lesser extent, they were signing these 70s bands in the 90s.
Yes. But
there was basically no promotion after that. They signed you guys, or bands like yourself, and then that was it. They're hoping that it would happen by themselves.
Well, that was probably part of their strategy. They were signing acts that were known and still had a strong fan base. But what they could do to make artists that had been recording for 25, 30 years appeal to a new audience, I don't know what they could do. Frankly, I was fairly satisfied with the Sanctuary, CMC record companies. As far as what they did. I never thought that Columbia Records in its day really knew what to do with Blue Oyster Cult as far as promotion goes. Yes, they could move records out the door when we had a hit, but I never felt they did anything to help us have hits. You know?
Do you think that Columbia had a hard time categorizing blue Öyster Cult, or how do you?
Yeah, you know, and well, that's a larger question. You know, why do you have to categorize an act anyway, and figure out, okay, well, this is how we're going to sell them, or this is where these guys belong, or they go on this radio station. You know.
Would you consider Blue Oyster Cult heavy metal?
Although we were one of the first bands to coin the phrase or to bandy the phrase, no, I would say we're not heavy metal. You know, I'd say we're very eclectic. We're very sort of intellectually light on our feet, and would, you know, play many different styles of music within the same song, even. You know.
Excellent. Going back to the late 70s, punk music was nipping at your heels. Did you sense that? Did you care about that? Or was there even some punk music that you liked?
Yeah. I mean, I like punk. You know, I thought disco was the bigger threat. You know, in the late 70s, it seems like just when we were starting to, you know, get well known on radio. You know, along comes disco and starts knocking rock right off the airwaves. You know, so punk didn't bother me. You know, it's funny being like almost a generation older at that point. Certainly I didn't feel like I needed to be punk, you know. It was already like too old for me.
In the early 80s, especially 81, 82, there was a lot of great music coming out. And Fire of Unknown Origin was one of those great albums. The 70s bands like the Moody Blues had Long Distance Voyager, which was incredible. Mm-hmm. Electric Light Orchestra had Time. That whole series of music that was coming out at that time was just amazing. Did you feel the power of Fire of Unknown Origin?
Definitely, yes. I think both the records we made with Martin Birch, Fire of Unknown Origin and Cultosaurus Erectus, are really, really distinctive and strong musically. And of course, there was an incredible period of creativity. I would say spanning, you know, the entire time that I've been alive, and I think it's in my lifespan is I wouldn't pick any other period of history to be alive as far as listening to music, you know, popular music. It's great. It's just awesome. And I wonder, you know, how good music is today in 2010, and there's no real way of me auditing it. I mean, I just can't. You know, you have to filter the amount of information out there these days. There's way too much, and so I mean, I hear the odd thing I like nowadays, but you know, I can't tell. You know, but you know, I suspect it was better in my day, but I'm not sure.
It is. Definitely, I would agree with you on that one for sure. And I think I grew up in the right time as well.
Yeah. Now,
Revolution by Night and Club Ninja were actually really good, great albums, and they had some great singles. The commercial success at that point was not as strong as it was before. Any feeling about that? Is this Capitol or Columbia again that's responsible?
I think the business has always been single oriented, and Oyster Cult never was a singles band. I think some of our weaker efforts were made when we felt that we sort of had to have a hit, and everybody was trying to write a hit in the band instead of just trying to write something good. You know, I mean, there is a difference. You know, there are hits that are great, and there are hits that are crap.
For the past 10 years that I've been seeing Blue Oyster Cult shows, there's always somebody in the audience yelling for "Take Me Away." I mean, and that's something that's not played.
Yeah, that's "Take Me Away" is an interesting tune. The track was written by Aldo Nova, and we became friends with Aldo when he was managed by Sandy Pearlman, who was our manager at the time for a brief period. And Eric wrote a really good lyric to it, and we made a video on it. It was released as a single, and it's a great song. It's kind of high for him to sing these days, so we don't play it too often. We tried transposing it down, doesn't have the same vibe. I notice a lot of acts these days are singing in lower keys, you know. Luckily, it hasn't affected me personally. I could still sing as high as I could then, which was never high to begin with, you know. And when in the period of Led Zeppelin's great run there, you know, and a lot of bands had singers that could sing really high. You know, that was we were like Johnny Cash or something. You know, just couldn't sing that high. So you work around it.
While we're on that subject,
Go ahead.
Who was that guy, and how did he have so much power back in the early '70s to?
Well, I think his success with Blue Oyster Cult gave him some power, but
didn't he have power before? I mean, in putting you together and then getting you gigs and so on.
Well, the germination of Blue Oyster Cult was his idea, basically. You know, he wrote the bulk of the band's early lyrics, along with Richard Meltzer, and he was one of the first people to write seriously about rock and roll. And when rock criticism started to be taken seriously, before that it was just teen fan mags, you know. But actually, the first serious criticism of rock and roll and treating rock and roll as something more than just intellectually, you know, giving it some weight.
But
he was right at the beginning of that. And in that capacity, he wrote for Crawdaddy magazine, which preceded the Rolling Stone, of course. And in that capacity, he began to have contacts with the record companies, and he always wanted to launch what became Blue Oyster Cult. And I was actually an engineering student, and happened to meet him at a house where Stony Brook students lived. You know, he attended Stony Brook and graduated, went to Brandeis also. In any event, his entree into the music business was the reason that I got involved in it as a career. I thought, okay, we'll give this a shot. You know, I like Sandy's lyrics, and he's got a concept, and he's got for the first time, you know, I thought that that this might be a possibility, you know, as a career. So.
But he was not a musician?
He played a little bit of harp, but no, his strength was not musical. It was conceptual, lyrical. He had great ears, you know. He's
so he had the connections, basically, to put this.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, organizationally, there's no way I personally would have taken this on. You know, I wasn't going to be like knocking the doors of record companies and stuff. You know, as opposed to an artist like Bruce Springsteen, who you have the feeling is very self-directed. You know?